Welcome to the pod. Welcome to Brian's world. I am your humble, grateful, gracious host, Brian B. Shynin. And I want to thank you for tapping in, taking time out of your busy schedule to listen to the pod. Shout out to Foolish Club Media. Make sure you tap in and rate, subscribe, and review on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and on Spotify. Season 2 of Brian's World. I don't know if it's officially seasons in podcasts. I don't know if they have those actually, but damn it, I'm declaring this season 2 of Brian's World because we're doing a little different. Got the video cracking for you. I know you just get tired of hearing me. Maybe you want to see me too. Maybe not. Probably not. I don't know. Depending on what you like. But yeah, going to be tackling a variety of subjects, not just Chiefs and NFL in this season of Brian's World, but I am still going to tackle the Chiefs, pun intended. And just take a look at where the Chiefs are. Take a look at the draft coming up. What do I want the Chiefs to do? What do I think they'll do? I put myself in Brett Veach's shoes for a second. We'll talk about the Bengals being an absolute joke of the NFL. And it just so happens that Jamar Chase is the comedian. Can't wait to dive into that. Royals opening day. Can't talk about Kansas City and Brian's World without the Royals. Excuse me? Come on, man. Shout out to Bobby Witt Jr. I want to talk a little NBA playoffs too. Kansas City business. Brian David Platt, city manager of Kansas City. He's suspended. I got some thoughts about that. There's a lot of things I need to get into. Malik Yoba, the sad reality of Kanye West, and also having a conversation with Ebony Reed. She has her own day in Kansas City, and her book 15 cents on her dollars doing well. Plus, I definitely want to talk about some Terez Paylor memories right here on Brian's World. But first, let's start out with our Kansas City Chiefs. Not much to talk about with the Chiefs, except with the offseason moves that they've been, doing with the signings and everything. I've liked just about everything that they've done, including trading Joe Thuney. Can't keep two guards on the team paid that high in money. So, of course, the Chiefs in the middle trying to work out a long-term contract with Trey Smith. I just thought that they could draft another Trey Smith, but that's neither here nor there to this point. My favorite signing that the Chiefs have made in this offseason, Mike Pennell. I'm just saying, dog. I thought that Mike Pennell was a crucial part of this team whenever Chris Jones is not on the field. I just think that the Chiefs need to get a little tougher. Mike Pennell's probably, I don't know, I think he's one of the biggest dudes on the team. And I just did not want to take a risk in losing Mike Pennell. And you already losing, Derek Nottie, maybe for better. But you're already losing Derek Nottie. So you don't want to lose all of your D tackles. You're Treshaun Wharton. Of course, those who listen to this podcast know how much I love Treshaun Wharton and how much that I think he means to this team. So just you don't want to lose advanced pause. It's crazy when I have to give you an advanced pause. But I didn't want the Chiefs to lose that much beef.
Pause. That was crazy.
That's the best way I could put it, bro. On the inside. And I just thought that Mike Pennell, he really gave some teams some fits when it came to them trying to run the ball. Mike Pennell, you see on a lot of plays, he's in there, he's getting his nose dirty, and he's just a massive human being, dog. Just for the fact of everything else, he's just a big ass dude, and that's probably my favorite attribute that I like about Mike Pennell and what he brings to the team. So, and then I just want to go right into the draft with that, because I think that's where the Chiefs should continue to look for talent, is on the defensive line. First round pick, I don't know. I'll get to the first round pick in a second, but as far as what the Chiefs should do in the draft, they got to address that D-line. Okay, we signed a Charles Omenihu. He's back. But other than him and Chris Jones, when teams double team all the time, it's where else are we supposed to get a good pass rush from? Karlaftis, solid, but he's not a Bosa pass rusher. He's not a Myles Garrett pass rusher. And I'm not saying that you could just find those guys everywhere. But what I am saying is that the Chiefs need some pass rush help other than 90 and 95. But I guess like a Daniil Hunter or Will Anderson, a pass rush specialist per se. I don't think the Chiefs have one of those on the defense besides Charles Omenihu. So I'm looking at D line. Offensive line too. We need guard help. Of course, we need tackle help as well. Jawan Taylor's contract, we don't know what that's going to look like and what they're going to do with him. A lot of people seem to think that the Chiefs are going to cut him. This might be his last year in Kansas City because his cap number is so big next year. So O-line, D-line, it might be a very boring draft for a lot of people because, you want to see skill position players sometimes. You like to see receivers and running back. Oh, that running back. Another place we got to address. Love the Elijah Mitchell signing. Probably my second favorite signing next to Mike Pennell. I love Elijah Mitchell. The Chiefs need some juice on this offense. Need some size on the defense. Need some size and some juice on the offensive line too. But running back, I wouldn't be surprised though. Look, Chiefs got the 31st pick. I would not be surprised if Veach went ahead and drafted a running back right there. Okay, yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire didn't pan out, didn't work out. But I think now you're evaluating running backs a little differently. And I think back then Veach was looking for something in the passing game, somebody who Patrick can check it down to. You can screen game him. But now I think people are looking for the stud at running back now. For the first time in a long time, you got the running back getting noticed in the first round because of Saquon Barkley and all the other running backs in the NFL that's been, carrying their teams. Derrick Henry, is the running back is back, in my opinion, because the game has shifted. Yes, it's still a passing league. Don't get me wrong, but if you saw last year, scoring was down a little bit, but running was up. Just look around the league with the running backs that are doing their thing, and I think it's going to reflect that in the draft this year. I think teams are going to be trying to look for some studs at running back, and the Chiefs should be right there looking and searching. I love the running back room right now. It's fine. Kareem Hunt, Pacheco, Elijah Mitchell. But I guess Carson Steele, if you want to count him. But imagine the Chiefs with a Josh Jacobs. They're out there. But I love Pacheco. Love him to death. Injuries happen. Okay. And Elijah Mitchell, we know he's been injury prone as well. And he's not your every down back either. I see Elijah Mitchell kind of in that Jerick McKinnon role, screening, third down back, maybe spell Pacheco a little bit if you need maybe a big play here or there. Maybe you throw it to the running back with Elijah Mitchell out there. But the Chiefs, I wouldn't be surprised if they went running back. There's so many ways that they could go with that 31st pick in the first round. But I ultimately think because we are deprived of picks, of mid-round picks, those I'm seeing like it's a lot of starters in this draft, not very many stars, but a lot of like great, solid, NFL type players in this draft. And the Chiefs are missing some picks in the 4th, 5th, 6th rounds too. So maybe you trade back, Veach, and snatch you a couple more picks for that first round pick that we have. So I think the Chiefs are in a solid position. I think everybody else, though, to be fair and to be honest, and I'm not one to give people accolades in the offseason, because you haven't done anything. Nothing's been proven. You're just signing checks away. But I do think that the rest of the AFC has caught up a little bit with the Chiefs, including our friends in the AFC West. I think these signings have gotten these teams better. Denver's defense is going to be a problem this year. Najee Harris to the Chargers. That's a great matchup. Him and Harbaugh and the way that they run the ball and the way that their offense is constructed. I think they're going to be fine. Although they did get a little weaker on defense with Bosa leaving. But Harbaugh will make up for that. The Chargers are going to be tough to beat this year. The Raiders, they, got a new coach in there. They're going with Geno Smith. Now I don't see the Raiders being, super competitive, but they're going to be feisty and they're going to be tough to beat in some games. So the AFC West has caught up with the Chiefs a little bit, as well as the rest of the conference. Now, one team who think that they have caught up with the Chiefs, you got a little bit more running to do. And that is that team in Southern Ohio named the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, people are, giving them a parade. Matter of fact, they're giving themselves a parade on signing their own players back. And I'm just sitting here thinking, does that actually make the Bengals better?
Hell no!
No, it doesn't. Matter of fact, I will argue it's going to make you worse. Because that trash-ass defense that you marched out on the field every single week in 2024, that got roasted almost every single week in 2024, not only are you bringing those pieces back, but you're going to have a new defensive coordinator, one of your star players retired, and you're losing guys still on defense. You're not going to be able to sign anybody else to play on that defense because of these contracts that you gave to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow's cap number is outrageous as well. So that's why I think the Bengals are not going to be any better. They're going to be worse. And they're still going to start out slow and then cry at the end of the season as to why they didn't make the playoffs. Well, look what you're doing in the offseason. It's a running joke in Cincinnati, especially when your own receiver that you gave a Brinks truck to wants to talk shit on your own city.
For me, I like Cincinnati because it gives me the opportunity to come here and focus. I'm not distracted out here. It's not too many things to get me, off pace out here, and it's strictly what I'm focused on. That's really tunnel vision for me to play football. So, at the end of the day, the food's not the best. We could work on that, but I'm from New Orleans. I'm not used to the food yet. But, overall, honestly, I just think that's the biggest picture for me is that I don't have no distractions here, and I can just play football. And my quarterback's here. And T here.
So, basically, your best player on your team, your star wide receiver, says that your city's trash, there's nothing to do, it's boring, and your food's nasty. Hey, y'all know my history with Cincinnati. My wife is from there. Yeah, the food. I'll just say that similar to him being from New Orleans, I'm from Kansas City, and their cooking just ain't hitting how Kansas City's cooking is. I'm not saying that Cincinnati's food as a whole is nasty. That chili is. It's not good chili. I make way better chili at home in my own kitchen. But as a whole, yeah, KC, I can only speak for KC. We dominating Cincinnati for food. Why you think my wife married me? Not for me. It's for the food in Kansas City. Jokes aside. No, jokes. But yeah, man, the Bengals got worse. I wouldn't be surprised if they went 6-11, but they got 8-9 and 9-8 written all over them for the next several years. And I'm gonna tell you this right now: they're gonna trade one of those receivers within the next 2 years because the contracts are gonna be too big, and they're gonna realize that this shit is not working. Several years ago, I want to say 2012, 2013, Rob Parker used to work at ESPN, and he was talking about RG3 and how he was questioning his blackness, for lack of a better term.
My question, which is just a straight, honest question, is he or is he a cornball brother?
What does that mean?
Yeah, explain that.
Well, he's not really. Okay, he's black, he kind of does the thing, but he's not really down with the cause. He's not one of us. He's kind of black, he's in the, but he's not really like the guy you really want to hang out with because he's off to something else. We all know he has a white fiance, and there was all this talk about he's a Republican, which there's no information at all. I'm just trying to dig deeper.
You know, he drew a lot of controversy for that back then. But I'm gonna be honest with you. I've just always felt the same way about Robert Griffin III. And, you know, he continues to prove me and Rob Parker right, especially with his tweets about Jackie Robinson. Excuse me? Yeah. RG3 needs to come to KC. I'll explain why. Basically, if you didn't see it, he said Jackie Robinson was not signed to break the color barrier. Jackie Robinson was signed because he was a phenomenal baseball player. That's not political. What? What are you talking about? He said this tweet is not about... He tweeted a bunch of stuff, y'all. Here's another one. This tweet is not about Jackie Robinson. His significance can never and should never be erased. Breaking the color barrier in baseball in itself is not political. Wow. This is crazy. Another one. This tweet is not about Jackie Robinson. His significance can never and should never be erased. Breaking the color barrier in baseball in itself is not political. Jesse Owens winning 4 gold medals in itself was not political. Jack Johnson becoming the first black boxing heavyweight champion in itself was not political. They all had political ramifications. They all challenged the status quo of racial barriers to fair play, race relations, and civil rights. I don't want to read no more of that. This is crazy. This is crazy that this black man thinks like this. And you have got to be shut out entirely of black culture to even have a thought like that. To think that there was nothing political about Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier in baseball. It changed the way the United States was. What? It helped the civil rights movement. What are you talking about? Like, I can't believe this dude was saying. But judging from the braids that he used to have, because they wasn't dreads. When he first got to the league, he had them buckwheats in. I don't know who did that hairstyle for him, but yeah, you could tell. But you could tell who though. Like the real ones can tell
Lord
who did his hair when he first came into the league. Probably still, I don't know what he rocking now. But anyway.
Damn.
He needs to pay a visit to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in Kansas City, Missouri. ASAP. Like ASAP. Him and, I mean, everybody else in the world too. But man, Mr. Bob Kendrick, and I know privately Mr. Kendrick got on his ass in his own house. And this is just me guessing. I'm not throwing this on Mr. Kendrick or nothing like that. But I could just imagine, because the passion and the history that man knows about that museum and what all of those baseball players had to go through in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s and beyond that. And for you to sit here and say that Jackie Robinson getting in baseball wasn't political, you ain't got to be the stupidest motherfucker alive. Like, I am appalled and low-key offended. Because being from this city, I know how important the Negro Leagues was to the country. Not just to baseball, but to the country. And Mr. Bob Kendrick preaches this every single day of his life. He preaches it all around the country. It's well documented. And this man, this is my whole point in talking about RG3 in this situation, is that Rob Parker was right. He is a cornball brother. Yeah, he's black, he's a brother, but he's a cornball though. And he ain't, there's things to question just how he is as a black man. How are you? Like, where do you stand, bruh? Where do you stand in certain things? So, look, everybody owes Rob Parker an apology. And look, let me say this too, because and can't nobody talk to me about A, race, B, being black. You can't talk to me about, you can't tell me anything about what I've lived through and my experience, because baby, I done went through a whole lot that you don't even know about. So I would love for somebody to come and question this genetically biracial, but socially and realistically black man, something about this subject, because I'm an expert at it, baby. I'm an expert. So any white man, black man, mixed man, whatever, come talking to me about this. I would love to have an open conversation about it. I really would. Because there are going to be some people who might be offended with this conversation and how I'm discussing RG3. But it's real, because if you take him and you put him in an environment where, it's mostly black people, and he has to, let's say he has to cater to that crowd, or he has to talk to that crowd. Does he know how to talk to that crowd? Can he relate to that crowd? Now, if you put him somewhere in Kansas City terms, you put him in Lee Summit or Olathe or something like that, yeah, he might be a little bit more comfortable out there. But you put him on the east side, east of Truce. Let's just do east, west of Truce. What side do you think RG3 would be in if he lived in Kansas City? West of Truce or east of Truce? We'll do a bonus one. When RG3 had them braids in his hair, where do you think he got them joints done? East of Truce or west of Truce? You ponder on that while we go to the next subject. Oh, Royals opening day coming. I ain't gonna spend a lot of time on the Royals. Look, man, made the playoffs last year. Surprised some people, but not too many. If you knew the makeup of the team, and I didn't know the makeup of the team. I was surprised my Royals went to the playoffs last year and did their thing. But that's great experience for Bobby Witt and those guys. Look, man, I'm expecting big things from this team this year. 162-0, baby.
Whoa, brother.
Yes.
Whoa, now.
Okay, no. But look, I think the Royals could make a deep run in the playoffs. You see, John Sherman, the owner, investing in the team, going out making a couple signings. Of course, he want to move that team over to Kansas or wherever, the rumor mill is flying. That's neither here nor there, but I'm excited that baseball is back. And because one of the best things about spring and summer is that you could go on a little date night on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. You spend $100 at, the Cheesecake Factory anyway. Take that $100, go to a Royals game. The weather's going to be beautiful. I can't wait for these spring and summer nights at the K. It's just going to be sad, man, because it's 2025 and the lease is up in 31 and they trying to get up out of Kauffman Stadium in that time frame. So we only have so many opening days left at that beautiful, gorgeous, perfect stadium that's off I-70 in Blue Ridge. We only got a few more, y'all. We might have, right now we got 6. It's probably going to be like 4 or 5 opening days left at the K. So we got to enjoy these things while they last. And when I go back to the K this year, I'm definitely taking my GoPro every time, because these are memories that we're going to need to hold on to, because that place ain't going to exist for that much longer. As you know, that the Royals are either trying to move downtown Kansas City, or the hot rumor right now is they going to 119th and Knoll over in Overland Park. Not a fan of that at all, because what the hell, bro? Overland Park? I gotta go to Overland Park to watch the Royals? I don't know, dog. I wish they would go downtown if they have to move. My ultimate wish is that both teams would stay where the hell they are because both stadiums are beautiful. But I get it. That ain't where we at. This is, we talking money. We talking big business. The Royals are thinking that they're missing out on money right now because they don't have the surrounding, area to, build a night bar to have a prospering business sector. There's none of that going on at the Truman Sports Complex. All of that action is happening downtown, and it seems like they trying to make a new one in Overland Park. So I get it. Money is being missed, and they want to make more money. And then you look at the Chiefs. You can want to capitalize on this Patrick Mahomes era. You don't know if you're going to have another Patrick Mahomes, for the rest of your life. We went 50 years without a Super Bowl, so we already know how precious this time is. And Clark Hunt wants to milk it dry. Okay, not saying that in a bad way, but what I'm saying is he wants to strike on this opportunity that he has. And you got to capitalize on your leverage. The popularity of the Chiefs is at an all-time high, not only in Kansas City, but worldwide. So, look, man, you got to make your money. It's a business at the end of the day. I understand it, but just me being a lifelong Kansas Cityan and being a lifelong fan of the Royals and Chiefs, seeing those two stadiums just, going away, it's sad. It is. But a new day, a new dollar, a new era. This thing must go on. It is what it is. The NBA playoffs are about to start soon. And if you know me, you know I am a Lakers fan. Although I have become extremely disinterested in basketball, probably since the pandemic, to be honest with you. Just the past 4 or 5 years, I just really ain't been into it. I know we won our bubble championship that people want to give us half credit for, but damn it, we won it. Okay. I am excited though about the Lakers this year and Luka Doncic and seeing what damage they could do. Because if LeBron pulls off this championship this year at the age of 40. Now, I was listening to the Michael Jordan versus LeBron conversations. I've always, had a keen interest in why people would think LeBron James is better than Michael Jeffrey Jordan. I never could understand it. But now, with all the accolades that LeBron has, the scoring title, the scoring record, not title, scoring record, the all-time scoring record, and he just keeps adding accolade. He got all-star appearances, finals appearances, whatever you want to name. LeBron's name is in that. Every important category that's ever existed in basketball. But if he pulls this off at the age of 40, because this is something that Jordan didn't do, didn't come close to doing, because them years with the Wizards, me being a Jordan fan, we just kind of erased it. It was like, Jordan, he out here playing around, he bored or whatever. But Jordan versus LeBron at 40 or past 38, Jordan ain't messing with LeBron. And that's what makes LeBron so spectacular and why I am interested and watching the playoffs this year to see if him and Luka can get the Lakers back tied with these funky ass Celtics with championship banners in the NBA. So NBA playoffs, can't wait. But the best NBA playoffs, the 2000s playoffs, NBA playoffs was some damn good playoffs. The 2010s too, the LeBron and Heat versus the Pacers and the Bulls, and then LeBron versus the Warriors. Those finals, the NBA playoffs is great. 2010s, but the best NBA playoffs was in the 90s, bar none. Y'all know it. The 80s was cool too, but the 90s NBA playoffs, man, it was some all-time performances. One of my favorites was Barkley hitting, 54, 56 or something like that in 94. Was that against the Warriors or I don't know. It was in the playoffs, man, and he was just lighting their ass up. I think it was the Warriors Suns in the playoffs in 94, where he just lit their ass up. The dude could not miss in this particular game. But Michael Jordan had Vernon Maxwell feeling a type of way every time they went up against each other.
I ain't gonna sleep for no motherfucker in the NBA. Only nigga I ever got night sleep the night before the game I slept with was Michael Jordan. All these other I'm gonna stay out to 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm gonna see you then.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see you. Yeah. I ain't scared of none of you. I guarantee you, I'm ready to rock and roll. Yeah, I stop all you mother. Michael Jordan, the only mother I'm gonna lay down for.
What time you go to bed with Mike?
Oh shit, I'm gonna be in that mother legs kicked up. Oh boy, hey boy, they be calling me when I be in Chicago, talking about going to that old ass stadium. And that's what we got, man. We gonna two-step tonight. Hell nah, nigga. Got my feet kicked up, nigga. I gotta see this. I gotta wait to see this tomorrow. This ain't gonna embarrass me in front of my home. I know this embarrass you, man.
And you know he at home.
Man, oh Lord, boy, I know.
Yeah, I'm sure Jordan gave everybody nightmares who he was going against. But the Vernon Maxwell interview on that All the Smoke podcast, it is an all-time great interview. I loved every single second of it. It might as well been a comedy special because I laughed almost the whole time. It was great. As I transition to Kansas City news, the Kansas City, Missouri City Council unanimously voted to extend the suspension of city manager Brian David Platt. Platt was suspended March 6th, which was one day after a jury awarded Chris Hernandez, a former Kansas City communications director, nearly $1 million in a civil suit against the city. Now, the council had no public discussion about firing Brian David Platt, so the suspension is indefinite, giving the city council more time to decide his future. And so, basically, he was suspended for telling people to lie to Kansas City. He told his staff to lie, allegedly, according to these documents. And so it's like, I asked Mayor Lucas this on Hustle and Shine in the morning. Of course, you can catch every weekday morning on High 103 Jam, 6 to 10 a.m. Shout out to my little sister, Deanna Hustle.
Duh.
But I asked Mayor Lucas, like, how can people in Kansas City, the constituents, trust what is coming out of City Hall with his name attached to it, Brian David Platt's name attached to it? He basically said it's a fair question, and they'll continue to assess the situation, and they'll go from there. I don't understand why this man was in this position in the first place, because it was allegations before he even got this job, I believe in New Jersey. And so there have been other things around Brian David Platt too, other allegations, a lot of them having to deal with black women at City Hall. And so they got to tread very, very lightly with this situation, because the public trust is already, thin as it is with people in politics, and you got just so many issues going around the city that, people feel like have not been addressed. And Mayor Lucas, he's in a tough spot. I don't envy him at all. But with Brian David Platt and him in this situation, I'm just not sure if Brian David Platt is in a position to be successful when, perhaps your own council people don't trust you, when, your constituents may not trust you. So trust is a big thing. It can make or break relationships. We see it every day within our personal lives, but especially when it comes to politicians and when you're in charge of those who pay your salary. We'll see what the city does with Brian David Platt and his tenure here in the town. Yo, I know New York Undercover was a great show back in the day. Deanna Hustle, she loves that show, New York Undercover. She says it's her favorite. But maybe it's the horns, maybe I don't maybe it's New York, the city of New York, but Malik Yoba, he's on something different right now.
Decided that I'm no longer a black man, no longer a person of color, BIPOC, none of that shit. What I am is a non-white man. And I think we should all just start calling ourselves non-white. So they're gonna have to figure it out. They'll just say that shit explicitly. No DEI, no BIPOC, no references to our blackness. So we just all walk around like, I'm not a black man, I'm a non-white man. I'm a non-white woman. I'm a non-white, all of us. Asians, Latinos, black people, everybody. Call it what it is. I'm just non-white.
Okay, you're non-white. I don't know what he's trying to prove with this, or what the end game is with this. Because we all can see that you're a black man. We all know that you're a black man. But I think this is dangerous because it could be influential. You can get other people kind of going in that same line of thinking, which would, to me, in turn, help erase our history. Hello, they already trying to erase it. Why give them the eraser to help them do it? And it's like, to me, it's pointless, because no matter what name you throw out, no matter what different nationality you want to take on, or whatever category you want to put it in, the books are always there. And we know where our history is. And you can't erase that. But they trying their damnedest to. You see how society is doing right now. It seems like they're trying to erase every single African American contribution that has been loaned to the United States. I just don't get why you don't want to be called or referred to as a black man. I totally don't understand it, but that's his problem, not mine. The sad downfall and the reality of where Kanye West is like, I don't know what to think of it, because it's so outrageous. I guess that's the word I can think of, is outrageous. Because he's going too far to try and prove some point. I don't know what point that is. I guess he thinks that everybody is a liar. Nobody believes in anything. What you're purposely aligning yourself with Diddy. You're purposely spreading hate. You're purposely aligning yourself with Nazis. This man is going off the rails. And then probably two disgusting things. Like, he's done a bunch of disgusting things. Talking about, I don't want to say fat women. Talking about bigger women, obese women. What is your problem? Dude got discrimination and harassment allegations. He said he hits women. And then the belligerent posts about Jay and Beyonce's children. Now, Jay-Z and Beyonce are considering taking legal action against him. I can't believe that he would tweet something so pathetic and hateful towards some kids, dog. Towards kids. And then he knew he was in trouble after he did that because, he went on to say, I'm paraphrasing, I don't know verbatim, but something to the likes of, they gonna kill me now, or Jay-Z's gonna kill me. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. And so the things that he said about Kim Kardashian too, you got into that family. You chose that. But now they're sex traffickers. I don't need to go any further with what this dude has done recently and what he said. But just 20 years ago, 2005, he was on TV talking about George Bush doesn't care about black people. Getting on stage and making an ass out of himself in 2009 at the VMAs with that. What did he have a liter of Hennessy on him or something? I don't know. But going up there interrupting Taylor Swift, to give Beyonce her just due. He's always done this. This is another level though. This is on a much deeper satanic level. Like, this is evil what he's saying and doing. And it's so many people that love him and believe in his movement and in his life that they will follow that kind of rhetoric and will feel like they could say that about anybody. Where's the line with this dude? When does he's like, all right, I done crossed the line? Because I still don't think he's there. Even with him saying what he said about Jay-Z and Beyonce and their children. And now you get Matthew Knowles involved too. He publicly condemned Kanye West's recent comments about his grandchildren. And in response, he said, quote, people pay a price for being stupid, especially in the music industry. That's it. He expressed hope that West seeks the mental health support he needs. It's sad, man. I keep thinking about the old Kanye West and even going back to 2011 when him and Jay-Z made Watch the Throne. Or was that 2012? I think that was 2011. When they made Watch the Throne, dog. It's just like that's a tag team that was undefeated. Like, nobody could beat Jay and Kanye. The music they made, that album was almost 9 skips for me. I didn't like Otis. I did not like that song. No Church in a While, that's my joint though. But man, it's a sad fall, man. And it is the weird thing is it's not a fall to some people. Some people think that he's doing God's work. I don't know what God they serving, but it ain't the same one I serve. Because that dude needs some help. And they need to take his internet from him.
Shut up, Brian.
This young lady, look, she's done some spectacular things in her life. I only know a couple things, but I know she's done more than that. She got her own day in Kansas City. Plus, she has co-written a spectacular book called 15 Cents on the Dollar. Please welcome to Brian's World, Mrs. Ebony Reed. How you feeling today?
Doing well, Brian. How you doing?
I'm good. Of
I'm
course.
sitting at my home in Kansas City, so I'm glad to be home. I'm on the road. Yeah.
Thank God the weather's cooperating.
Yes. Yes.
Because, man, look, last month, look, February and January, the weather wanted to act up. So I don't know. How long were you here? Were you here any time in January or February?
I was on the road quite a bit in January and February, but I was here for some stretches where it was very cold. We had a lot of snow. I was here that weekend. Remember the airport shut down because of the ice
Yeah.
storm?
Hmm.
I had gone out that weekend because I thought, oh, let me just run out before the ice storm. I had to turn around and come home. I
Yeah.
couldn't make it was yes.
Yeah, it got bad for a minute in KC, but it's good that you're in good proximity. Hopefully you might got some barbecue sauce on your fingers right now that because that you just licked off or whatever. But no, all jokes aside, 15 cents on the dollar. It is such a great book that you wrote last year, and like you said, you've been all around the country talking about it, doing a lot of interviews. But what was the one thing that inspired you to write this particular book?
Well, my co-author Louise Story, who I worked with at the Wall Street Journal, on this project, we go back several years. So in the summer of 2020, if you think back to then, remember we were kind of like all in our homes, shuttered up. That first pandemic summer, we couldn't go anywhere; everything was shut down. And she lives on the East Coast, and I'm here in Kansas City. And I worked for her at the Journal. She recruited me to join her there. We were just having conversations like in the evenings and the weekends on Zoom, just like this. And we were talking about books that we were reading, and equities we had seen in society and in workplaces and communities throughout our lifetime. And we realized quickly that there is no book that is the complete history of the Black-white wealth gap in our country. A lot of great books, very detailed, excellent books and reporting on redlining and the history of slavery and a lot of topics, but we hadn't seen a book that really broke down how the Black-white wealth gap started in our country and brought it to present day with living contemporary people. So this is a book that's a deep dive on 7 Black families. It also runs along the story of a fintech named Greenwood that has a stated mission to try to close the Black-white wealth gap. And so we offer that, experience for readers as well.
Did you base your studies with these families in one particular city or one particular region in the United States?
So the book is based out of Atlanta. And the reason, the rationale behind that is, Atlanta is well known as being, the Black Mecca, a place where a lot of Black Americans have gone and sort of seen as a potential economic promised land at different times for different reasons. And the founders of Greenwood were also in that part of the country, are also in, Atlanta. So that includes Andrew Young, the former Atlanta mayor. It includes Michael Render, also known as Killer Mike, who is a artist that I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with. Also Ryan Glover, who's an entrepreneur and started Bounce TV with the King family and others. So we focused on them because they were founders of this fintech, but then also looked at people that either were customers or fit the profile of customers. So that's where you meet a young woman from North Carolina that's trying to raise up her family economically, and she's trying to make it to Atlanta so she can live, the dream in the big city. She's from a small town. And you also meet, a man who is an entrepreneur and is running an unlicensed barbecue business. When we first met him, by a gas station, and you see what happens to him in his life, where he is a victim of a rent-to-own contract for a house. And you see the predatory things that he experiences. And then you also meet the youngest head of the Georgia NAACP, who's trying to, fight for justice, but he's not paid in his work. And so he has to live with, family members, and he's trying to figure out how to make it. And he's impacted by the student loan crisis. And so you meet all of these people. And so while the title of the book, it's 15 cents on the dollar, that comes from federal data. And what it means is that a typical Black family has 15 cents in wealth for every $1 in wealth a white family has. And so Louise and I traced the family trees of these families going back 5 to 6 generations. So as you learn, what happened in our country historically that contributed to the Black-white wealth gap being created, you meet who these people have descended from. And I also, Brian, like to let people know, the early reporting plan for this book, it came right out of this kitchen. Like this kitchen I'm sitting in right now. Louise was here in April of 2021, and we were mapping out an early reporting plan, right here in Kansas City for this book. It was just 8 weeks after my partner, Terez Paylor, had passed away. And we were just like, can we still do this book? And, he read an early proposal for it, and it was like, this is going to be an important book. You should do it. You should do it with Louise. And so I'm really proud that like we were able to do it. It took us 3 years, 400 interviews. And Kansas City was also our first stop for the public symposiums that we've been having about racial wealth gaps and educating people about the data and the topic. We held our first one a little bit more than a year ago on February 26, 2024, right here in Kansas City, and learned a lot from that gathering, and then went on to do it, in dozens of other communities across the country.
Man, I got so many questions that spawned off of that. I want to get to the predatory loan thing because that in our community is devilish. But before I get to that, so like is 15 cents on a dollar specific to Black Americans, or is that like Hispanics? Is that Asians? Is that just Black people?
That's a great question. It is specific to Black people, and I'll talk a little bit about the other racial wealth gaps, but I invite your listeners to go to our website. It's 15 cents. So 15cents.info. And at 15cents.info, people can see some charts and graphics, and they can learn more about this topic. We also have a listing of independent and Black bookstores where people can also purchase the book if they like to patronize one of those types of retailers. The Latino white gap is 22 cents on the dollar. And so economists have said that that number, from the Federal Reserve doesn't include undocumented workers. And for that reason, people often question whether or not the true Latino white wealth gap is closer to the 15 cents that we see in the Black community. I should also say that 15 cents on the dollar is also the median, and it is the mean. So what I mean by that is like a question that we hear from people is, well, if you were to take all of the white billionaires out of the data, would this gap go away? Because there are more white billionaires than there are Black billionaires. And the answer to that is no. And the reason the answer is no is that 15 cents, or another way to look at it is, a Black average American household has 15 cents, 15% in the wealth of a white family. That is true in the mean, which is the average, but it is also true in the median, which is when you line up all the numbers in the distribution and you look at the number in the middle. And when you look at the median, if you kick out, billionaires on the end, that's not going to change the median. And so we explain that to people in our symposiums. We also explain to people what wealth is. Brian, there's a lot of people that don't know what wealth is. And you can tell when they start talking to you and you're telling them about wealth, and then they say, well, there are people at my job that, earn the same as me, or maybe we're in union jobs and the salaries are posted, or, I know that the people who hold these jobs all make in a certain range. And what they're speaking about is income. Wealth is everything that you own minus what you owe. And income can be an input into wealth, but income is not the same thing as wealth. Income can help us, develop wealth. Like we could save our money and become wealthier, for example. But income and wealth are two different things. And wealth, to an extent, can seem invisible, right? Because we don't know. If you see someone and they're living in a large home, that house could have a lot of debt on it. They could be driving, a fancy car, have nice jewelry. That stuff could be, really, carrying a lot of debt for them. And so I think because of that, a lot of times people, don't really understand the true definition of wealth and sometimes get confused around wealth and income. And we hear that from people and have heard that from people as we've been out in the last year talking with communities across the country.
And with your research in this book, 15 cents on the dollar, um, you just referred to the rent to own scams,
Yeah, let's go
if
back
I
there.
may
I'm
say.
sorry. I'm sorry. I took us down a
You could
whole different.
no, no. This is information. This is good stuff. But you mentioned that, and it heightened my senses because growing up in the hood in Kansas City and Village Green, there was always a check cashing place,
Hmm.
on every major street corner, probably in every hood in the United States.
Hmm.
And these things are awful. The interest rates are sky high, but that's nothing that we pay attention to or even nothing that we know about. It's like if there's I'm just gonna make up a number. If there's a 30% interest rate on this $1,000 that I'm about to give you, they don't know that I have to pay. I can't come up with the number. It's not $3,000, but it's something. It's another bill that you have to pay in order to get more money. And people accumulate these things, and the debt gets deeper, the credit scores get worse. You can't go to school now, you can't sign off on loans for your kids to go to school. It's a big snowball effect of debt and poverty. Like how do we get out of this mud, this
It,
quicksand?
it sounds like you're quoting our book, because that is
Oh,
the story
really?
of the people of some of them in the book. I
I
mean,
haven't read the book yet. I'm an audiobook person. I haven't read
well,
it yet,
listen,
but
it's on audio,
that's
it's on
crazy.
Kindle. That's no excuse, Brian.
Okay, no, I'm gonna get to it.
It's a long book. It's a 400 plus page book, so it is a time commitment. But the people who have finished it tell us that it was well worth the time. I mean, so how do we get out of it? Well, let me say before I go down that path and offer some thoughts. The rent to own contracts. The reason the rent to own contracts for homes are challenging for people who participate in them is because they do not offer the same protections as mortgages. So if you have a mortgage through a bank on a home and you're making your payments and a person, gets behind, then there are certain protections that like protect the equity that you have in there and you can get caught up and you can work with the bank. With the rent to own contracts, what makes them a mechanism that a lot of people consider to be predatory is that, if a person falls behind, that person can lose everything that they've put into the home. And so that's when we get into like, these contracts and really reading them and understanding, the fine print of what we're signing up for. I am not, and neither is my co-author, financial advisors. And we also, as journalists, do not offer policy recommendations, but, we do encourage people at a macro level, we offer some thoughts about, partnering with people who are different throughout your lifetime on a significant project. We offer people the consideration to think about more wealth transparency in our country. But I also hear too from Black Americans who say to me, "That's nice, Ebony, but I need to know what to do right now." And so what I say when I get pressed, and for good reason, I understand why people are pressing. I say to them, let me remind you, I am not a financial advisor. I do hold two real estate licenses in Missouri and Massachusetts, mainly to better educate myself. But the number one thing I tell people after I remind them multiple times I'm not an advisor is that I encourage everyone to think about meeting with one. And I said, I tell people, I said, the reason for that is because our individual situations are so different. Whether or not, you have debt, how long you have to work, whether or not you have a relative that might leave you something, whether or not you're part of a family that has heirs property. Like there's just so many things that individual assistance that you can get from meeting with someone who focuses in this space, can be really helpful. But some other things to think about. In the book, millennials are questioning whether or not they want to buy homes. And they're questioning whether or not that is, an investment that's either affordable or worth their money.
It's not.
Well,
It
I'm
isn't.
not saying, again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just telling you what people are saying. We know that some major drivers of wealth in our country, one is inheritance. We've also seen, driving wealth from the stock market. And we do know that Black Americans are paying attention to the stock market, investing in higher numbers. We know that entrepreneurship, people who are entrepreneurs tend to have higher wealth than Black Americans. Like Black Americans who are entrepreneurs tend to have more wealth than Black Americans who are not, for a variety of reasons there. Home ownership, back to that, white Americans own homes at 75%, Black Americans are closer to 45%. Um, so I think, the book covers those things. Bankruptcy court. We have a whole chapter on bankruptcy court. People might not think about bankruptcy court as something that drives the wealth gap between Black and white Americans, but it is very documented that Black Americans do not have the same outcomes for debt forgiveness in bankruptcy court as white Americans. And anytime you have a program that's set up that can further widen the gap, then that's what happens. We also cover in the book historically things that have happened. The GI Bill, that was a government program set up for all veterans who fought in World War II. But Black Americans, by and large, didn't have the same experience to use the benefits to buy homes. And that, federal program helped set up the white middle class in our country. I found out through the reporting of this book that I'm part of a very, very, very small percentage of Black Americans, interestingly, who were successful in using the GI Bill to be able to buy a home. My grandfather, Robert Reed, fought in World War II. And my aunts, reminded me of that and then told me the house that he bought in suburban Louisville in 1954 with my grandmother, they used the GI Bill. Now, nobody seems to have the story exactly, have an exact understanding of how he was able to do so, but they have documentation in my family. My aunts shared with me about this. And for me, it was a shock, but it also made me so proud because I thought, wow, my grandfather did something that must have been incredibly difficult and that a lot of Black Americans, for no fault of their own, were not able to.
Wow, you got some stories, Ebony. You spawned off a couple more questions for me. I'm trying to wrap this up with your book because I have a couple more things I want to get to before we end our conversation. But you mentioned inheritance. I read something last year that's saying that baby boomers are unfortunately passing away, because of age. It is what it is. And this is about to be the largest transfer of wealth in the history of the world or something like that, or in the history of America. I don't remember, but it's supposed to be a large lump sum of money transferring from baby boomers to their kids, whether that's Gen X or millennials. But I was thinking about, well, how did this start? It started kind of with inheritance. Like, okay, white people were here in America long before they came and got us black people here in America to build their empires, for free. And the more I think about the original companies here in America, like, I don't know, like Ford, Coca-Cola, it's probably some older companies or whatever. Okay, like JP Morgan, uh, some those East Coast companies, East Coast banks and stuff that's been here for a couple hundred years or whatever. And it's like it's so many white companies and white people that had that head start, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? This is why the reparations conversation is so important and necessary for all Black Americans. It is because we've been behind for so long, and the odds have been stacked against us for so many reasons and so many, like, let's not even get to the drugs in the communities and all of that type of stuff and guns and all of that or whatever. But what I'm trying to say is that it's only so many books and programs that can work for people, because you mentioned somebody needs something right now. We're all in survival mode in our communities. So it's like the fact that we're behind, the fact that some of us aren't financially literate, the fact that we're still in survival mode, it just seems like this gap is astronomical, Ebony, with all
Well,
of those factors built in.
Well, you know what? It is. And, I don't say this to be negative or pessimistic. I say this to be real. That, we do towards the end of the book have a calculation that depending on, at what point at that you look at the trajectory of the black white wealth gap, whether you're looking at starting at 2013 or 2019, we explain this in the book, why those years are significant. But without some serious program intervention, and it likely would need to come from not only government but private industry, depending on how you calculate where you start looking at the gap and the trajectory, toward parity, which is 1-to-1, eliminating the gap, it will take anywhere between 91 and 291 years. Now, I say that because, we also explain that to people in our, symposiums that we hold. And there usually is an audible gasp from people of all races when they hear that, because so many people think that with the opening of access in our country, with the opening of, education, or you're seeing more diversity in certain neighborhoods, they think things are getting better. But from a wealth perspective, the 15 cents on the dollar black-white wealth gap, meaning a black family has 15 cents in wealth for every $1 that a white family has. A typical family, based on Federal Reserve data, is the same number it was in the 1950s. So you are correct in saying that it does feel like this overwhelming, gap.
Mm, wow. 15 cents on the dollar, man. It's a needed book for everybody to read, including myself. I'm definitely gonna tap in with that. I want to talk about Ebony Reed Day in Kansas City, February 26th, right?
It was. It just
Feb-
passed. It was awful nice of our mayor
There we go.
to do that. So yes. And by the way,
Yeah.
get your book, tell me so I can sign it.
Okay, bet. No, seriously, for real. Because at the beginning of and before I jump there, I need to stick on Ebony Reed Day. How did this come about? Like, what do you and Mayor Lucas? I know he probably learned a couple things from your book,
You know
but
what? I
what
haven't
was the
talked with him
process?
recently. I haven't talked with him recently. I talked with someone in his office. Listen, I think it is a very generous and nice thing of the mayor's office to have done. Terez has his own day in August, Terez Paylor Day in Kansas City, and I think that it's awful kind, but also speaks to the work that I've been doing since I landed here in Kansas City, on a national scale, but from here, that I would be recognized, and I'm most grateful for it.
That's beautiful. All right, let me get to my man Terez, because Terez was such a special writer from the day that he first started at the Kansas City Star. I think he was covering like high school football or something.
He was. He was.
hmm
Yes.
And I don't know what it was, but I just started to read his articles whenever I had a chance to get on a Star. Well, was this 2010, 2009? Am I right around there? Or was it earlier than that?
Terez finished college. He graduated from Howard in 2006, and he
Okay.
came to Kansas City after then. He held a variety of jobs before he, just like some general starter jobs you have to do
Right.
when you start out at a news organization. But he did cover high school sports. He covered collegiate sports at the University of Missouri. He went to live in Columbia for a couple of years. Then he came back to Kansas City and he covered the Chiefs, and then
Yep.
he went on to becoming a national NFL journalist. I joined him. We were introduced by a mutual friend in 2016, and he told me like after 3 months of dating that he was going to marry me. So
Haha.
I appreciate the clarity and the directness and the honesty. And so I joined him in Missouri in 2017. And I spent the first couple years teaching at Mizzou, my alma mater. So he would spend the off season when the NFL season was quiet, for the summer, he'd be in Colombia with me. And then ultimately, I moved here and we bought a home together in the Northland. And I still, live in that home, live in the community, where we got to know our neighbors and we're starting our lives here. So.
And that if I were to guess, I thought that you all had met in college way back in the day, and
No,
y'all was writing articles together,
no, you know what? What's funny is that we did enjoy editing each other, but no, I mean, the funny thing about it is that we had a mutual friend who had worked with him at the Star for like a decade, and his wife, our friend's wife, had also worked with Terez. And this couple, I go way back with, like the husband of this couple, Bill Ryder, some people may remember his name. He was a writer at the Kansas City Star. We had met in a high school journalism program in North Carolina. And we stayed friends. We went to Mizzou together. He met his wife there. And for 3 years, he tried to introduce me to Terez, and I just wasn't ready. So it was definitely a connection in the making for a long time.
I wasn't ready for all that yet. I know that's right. But I just want to say that dude, man, I to follow his career, because I mentioned the high school thing, when he became the Chiefs beat reporter, like it was a godsend, especially at that time, because the Chiefs were terrible and we needed his insight. We needed the way that he covers college football and gets us ready for the draft with the all juice team.
Mhm.
Like, man, it was spectacular. And like Terez is the reason why I started listening to Yahoo Sports with Charles Robinson. Because
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
Charles, he talks about you all the time on the pod that he
Well,
has.
Charles and I go way back. So, I knew Charles from the 90s. Our other mutual friends, we had met at their wedding. And so it's just like the worlds colliding. So I had actually introduced Terez. It was like January of 2017. We were together on a trip out in California, and I introduced him to some friends from Yahoo. And then that's how he started talking with them. And then that sort of like came to be. But yeah, Charles is a good friend. I've known him for a long time. And Terez, I mean, you know what? He loved covering football. He was living his dream. He never wanted to leave Kansas City. Sometimes I think um I know he's just got to be like looking down on me and being like, wow, like she stayed, And I tell people all the time that I feel like every good deed that he did in his life in the 15 years that he lived in Kansas City comes back to me in the most unexpected ways in this community.
Ebony, you let me know if I'm getting a little too personal, but this is just where my heart goes.
Okay, okay.
Are you spiritual? You
I
you got some oil on you?
I do. I am.
All
I
right.
I
All right,
am.
good. We good. All right. So do you feel like through this process with starting and writing the book, of course, Terez, you mentioned that he was the one that helped you start it. But throughout the whole process, do you think he's been right there with you?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I mean, he really supported the idea that Louise and I had together, and he really wanted to see us do this project. And I do. I mean, I do feel like he's in some sort of like way, I I feel that he's like watching over me in some kind of way when I'm in Kansas City. So it isn't uncommon for people who work with me, like, because I have a full-time job. I'm chief strategy officer at the Marshall Project, and Louise and I also taught a class at the Yale School of Management for 3 years. It's not uncommon for people who work with me in other capacities to hear me say, "Oh, I've been gone from home too long. I got to get back to Kansas City." And I don't know that they always know like why I'm saying that and like what that means to me. Because I've had people try to figure out like, oh, well, do you have kids? Do you have pets? Like, try to figure out like what that's about. That is because like at a certain point, I'm like, oh, I need to go home because I do feel connected to him and his love. And I do feel it when I'm in this community. And so it's like, I just need to come home and then I'm good, and then I can go back out.
That's special. That's special. I know my man will be going absolutely bonkers over them Detroit Lions and what they did last year.
Well, let's see what happens this season. Let's see what happens this season.
Yeah. Hold on, before we wrap up, where are you originally from?
You know what? I grew up outside of Detroit.
Look at that. See?
I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, but I was raised in Detroit suburbs. And so I will just tell you this, when our mutual friend connected, Terez and me, the friend said, where are you going to find a woman that loves Missouri, because I'm a Mizzou alum, who is a journalist, who is from the Detroit area like you are? And my friend was just like, you guys are going to be two peas in a pod. And we were.
Oh, that Detroit Lions love. Look at that. and your Honolulu blue and silver. That's cute. Nah,
but I also do root for the Chiefs, because I don't want people to think that because I do.
Of course. Going back to Charles one more time, because him and Terez, they had the best podcast of all time for, I don't know, they only did it for like 2 years until the untimely passing of Terez. But man, that was such a great look. You got to introduce me to Charles. I listen to him religiously on Inside Coverage now with Jason Fitz.
Okay. Listen, Charles was here last fall and took me to dinner. I'll let you know next time he comes to town.
Please do me that favor. Ebony, thank you so much for joining me on Brian's World. This has been an honor and a pleasure. 15 cents on a dollar, available Amazon or everywhere?
Everywhere, Amazon, Rainy Day Books here in Kansas City, your local library, Kansas City Public Library is supportive. It's audio too, and Kindle.
Oh yeah, I need that audio. I need that. Ebony Reed, thank you so much. Have a good one. Be blessed. And I'm gonna start saying this instead of be blessed, be safe, because that's what I usually end with. I'm gonna end now. This is my new thing. Be a blessing.
I like that.
Because if we all are a blessing to each other, then everybody gets blessed regardless.
I like
be
that.
a blessing.
Big
love, Ebony. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank my guest, Ebony Reed, for coming on the pod and providing such a wealth of information. I got to go get that book, 15 cents on the dollar, and you do too. But, of course, I want to thank you, the listener to Brian's World. Please, man, rate, subscribe, and review Foolish Club Media on YouTube, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. Well, until next time, y'all, I will definitely holler. Give me a couple weeks or so. It'll be a pre-draft pod. So, yeah, I'll definitely have some interesting things to talk about. Until then, be a blessing. And I'll holler at you on the next episode of Brian's